Welcome to CIS 579, Technology of E-Business. This is Chapter 6, Mobile Commerce and Ubiquitous Computing. The learning objectives for this chapter include discussing the value-added attributes, benefits, and fundamental drivers of M or mobile commerce. We'll describe the mobile computing infrastructure that supports mobile commerce, such as the devices, the software, the various services that are added, and things of that nature. We'll talk about the four major types of wireless telecommunication networks. We'll talk about mobile commerce applications in banking and financial services. We'll describe enterprise applications. We'll talk about consumer and personal applications of m-commerce or mobile commerce, including entertainment. You should understand the technologies and potential applications of location-based mobile commerce, and we'll talk about location-based mobile commerce in a little bit more detail when we get to that section. Maybe a little bit less familiar to some of you. We'll define and describe ubiquitous computing and sensory networks, and then we'll finish up talking about the major implementation issues from security and privacy to barriers of mobile commerce. So what is mobile commerce? Well, sometimes it's referred to as m-commerce or m-business. It's really any business activity conducted over a wireless telecommunications network or from mobile devices. So typically we'll use our smartphones or little tablets to be able to access websites, to be able to access our banking sites or e-commerce sites in order to be able to conduct business, shop, things of that nature. Some of the attributes of mobile commerce: ubiquity. In other words, it's everywhere. We have the ability to access it from virtually anywhere, and obviously that leads to convenience. It's very convenient to be able to simply access something from sitting on the couch or when we're in the train station or at the airport. Interactivity. We're able to very quickly and easy be able to submit queries, get feedback, do searches, things of that nature. So it's an interactive, it's a give and take relationship. Personalization. In other words, we're able to create or generate or consume content that is very personal in nature. In other words, we can check our local weather, we can find the local movies that are occurring right then, purchase movie tickets, things of that nature. And lastly, localization. In other words, we're able to take advantage of the services and goods and services that are near us, again referring to things like weather and things of that nature. So if we were tasked to try to illustrate the concept of mobile computing graphically, it might look something like this that we see in Exhibit 6.1, the landscape of mobile computing and m-commerce. While conceptually it may be fairly easy and straightforward to visualize, the reality is on the back end there's an awful lot of things that have to occur to be able to make mobile computing so convenient, so ubiquitous, so personalized and convenient. We see that there's certain technical foundations. In other words, the networking that must occur, 3G, Wi-Fi, etc., wireless networks, internet standards, hardware, software. So there's a lot that really goes into that to be able to create a lot of those various capabilities and those various attributes that we're used to. Some of the drivers of those capabilities and those attributes are really powerful technology. In other words, the speed with which systems work today is much faster than it was a few years ago, and simply that speed is significant in that it helps to really drive our use of it. If our systems were too slow, we simply wouldn't use them. The amount of memory that we have and the cost of that memory. So there's a lot of drivers that help push our adoption of mobile computing. The ubiquity of computing. In other words, we have access everywhere, unless you get out into certain areas of the country that have poor cell phone coverage or what have you. We really have access to our computing resources virtually anywhere, so it's very ubiquitous. And then we have the various applications. In other words, how are we going to apply this to our particular situation? Mobile commerce, e-commerce, enterprise, etc. So let's look at some of those drivers of m-commerce a little bit more closely. There's the widespread availability of more powerful mobile devices. In other words, the mobile devices that we have today are extremely powerful. They're relatively fast. The amount of storage space that they have is relatively large for a relatively cheap price. So as a result, the supply or the demand of these devices is much greater than it once was. So there really, lots of people have these devices. There's also this idea of the handset culture. In other words, we're used to cell phones. Everybody has a cell phone. And as we pack more and more features into these cell phones, we end up coming out with smartphones, or coming up with smartphones. And these smartphones are just an easy extension for most consumers to be able to take advantage of various services that are available, which leads us to the next point of the service economy. A lot of vendors and manufacturers push consumers various services to consumers via these smart devices, and because it's easy, it's cheap, and it's a way to capture additional market and provide additional services to customers, potential market space for customers, and as a result, it's very beneficial to those vendors, obviously, which is the next point, the vendor push. It's a way to distinguish them from their competitors. In other words, create competitive advantage by offering services that can be consumed through mobile devices. There's the mobile workforce and mobile enterprise. We just expect to be able to access our networks on the go, improve price performance. The performance that we get out of these mobile devices today is incredible. It's much more powerful than our desktop machines were just a few years ago. So that price to performance is significant. I have a little Google Nexus tablet that does $200, and you just can't. It's hard to say that something like that isn't worth it. And then improve bandwidth, so we're able to even on wireless networks, or I should say cellular networks, we're able to consume an awful lot of services, access websites and email, download attachments of a relatively large size without really taking all that long. So there's a lot of drivers of mobile commerce. There are literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of mobile commerce applications, apps for short, and we need some way of categorizing or framing the various aspects of these apps. The book talks about using a framework developed by Motorola Corporation that looks at them at apps in terms of field mobility, fleet mobility, warehouse management, and DSD, or direct store delivery route accounting. Field mobility is really there to support the workforce. In other words, provide the workforce with tools to help them do their jobs better, faster, more efficiently, more effectively, etc. Fleet mobility is to support the vehicles in order to be able to minimize downtime and increase utilization. In other words, help them to route their vehicles more efficiently to make sure that they're not driving out of the way, to be able to make sure that their things are packed properly, things of that nature. Warehouse management, the improvement of the operations inside the warehouses. In other words, minimize how many times we have to move things from place to place inside the warehouse. See if we can't more efficiently move our various products around the warehouse. And then lastly, DSD, direct store delivery route accounting. The increased accuracy by managing inventory properly and delivering goods, as well as to make the most pre-sales and merchandise calls. Again, just to kind of manage that whole process more efficiently and more effectively. So basically those are four different needs that virtually every industry has, or at least some combination of those needs. For example, hospitality, education, healthcare, retail, wholesale, utilities, manufacturing, transportation, logistics. They all have needs for or have some component of these various needs. What are some of the benefits of m-commerce? Well, what aren't some of the benefits? It really benefits everybody. It's a win-win situation. As far as organizations specifically, it helps to increase sales due to ease of ordering from anywhere, anytime. You can order something really quick and easy on your phone or on your tablet. It allows location-based commerce for more sales and revenue. It provides for an additional channel for advertising and distribution of coupons. I don't know about you, but I use various apps for when I go to the grocery store, I can load coupons on my phone as I go to the grocery store, and then I have a list of the various things that I'm purchasing. So it's a very convenient way of keeping track and still taking advantage of coupons. It improves customer satisfaction through real-time apps, reduces training time and help desk resources, as well as various other benefits to the organization. As far as benefiting individuals and customers, it allows internet commerce from any place, any time, provides a choice of mobile devices for the same transactions. For example, I have an iPhone and that Google tablet, and I'll have apps on the same app on each device, with the data actually being stored out on the cloud, and allows me to access that same information from either device and look at the same data, as well as several other benefits as well. As far as other benefits, really the mobile devices really, or mobile commerce, the real advantage is that it's the ubiquity of it. It really is everywhere, and it allows for true personalization. We're able to really customize our devices to be able to have exactly the apps that we want, that really provide the content that we want. It allows us to reduce costs, allows us to increase time available to employees. We're able to get more done and save time. And it allows us to expedite business processes. So there's a lot of benefits when it comes to mobile commerce. So we've talked about mobile computing and some of the benefits of it and things of that nature. Really, what is it? Traditionally, we're used to, at home or in the work environment, the traditional desktop environment of talking about a big clunky machine. It's wired directly to the wall that goes out somewhere, connects to the network in some mysterious way, some big black box or cloud, if you will. Mobile commerce is obviously a little bit different. Wireless mobile computing, or mobile computing. Computing that connects to a mobile device, connects a mobile device to a network or another computing device anytime, anywhere. Our mobile phones, our smartphones, are mobile computing devices. That's what really creates that ubiquity. That's what really creates that ability to personalize content. And that's what distinguishes mobile computing from traditional computing. When we start talking about mobile devices and the various technologies, things of that nature, as it relates to mobile computing, mobile devices, we have a lot of new terms that get introduced to us. And you've probably heard of a lot of these. I'll briefly run down these quickly. You'll see the source down there at the bottom, webopedia.com. As an aside, I'm a big believer in wikis. I think that Wikipedia, for example, is a very valuable resource. It may not be the best academic resource to cite, but I think there's a lot of value in wikis. Having said that, Bluetooth, most of you have heard of the term if you're not actually using it. It's basically a cable replacement technology, creates personal area networks, very small networks designed to link keyboards to computers without wires, to link cell phones to your automobile, for example, without wires. So it's really a cable replacement technology. GPS, global positioning systems, allowing us to basically triangulate our positions globally, and allows us to easily generate directions and things like that. Personal digital assistants used to be a separate class. It's really kind of gotten combined with our smartphones anymore. But basically little devices that allow us to kind of coordinate our activities and track our emails, track our contacts, things like that. SMS, text messaging, I think everybody's familiar with that anymore. I think everybody pretty much has unlimited text anymore. But basically short little messages that you can send back and forth. Smartphones, we kind of talked about just a second ago with PDAs, basically extended cell phones, ones that have quite a bit more computing power, give you the ability to add apps and things like that. WiMAX, a wireless technology based on the 802.16 series of standards, designed to provide internet access across metro areas to fixed, non-moving users. It is a wireless broadband technology. It's similar to wireless LANs that we'll talk about here in just a second, except that it's much larger in scope and it's a slightly different protocol. Wireless access points, those are the devices that we're actually using to access with our mobile devices. We access those wireless access points that allow us then to connect to the broader networks. And then wireless LANs, which we talked about just a second ago. As consumers, most of us are using some sort of mobile device anymore, whether it's a PDA, a smartphone, or a tablet. Most of the time it's going to be a smartphone anymore. It's a mobile phone with PC-like capabilities. Various apps that we can download, we can check email, has a browser, things like that. We've kind of moved away from the PDA model, so we don't really see just PDAs anymore, largely because even though they do everything that a smartphone does, except actually make phone calls, it kind of lacks that utility. Tablets are becoming more and more common. I actually just got back from a conference in which I noticed that virtually everybody had tablets, and when I say virtually everybody, I mean virtually everybody, not just young faculty, older faculty as well. And I was really surprised to talk to some of the older faculty about how much they relied on their tablets to be able to read and use them as basically e-books. So it's really becoming very common across various age groups. So tablets are becoming much more common in the area of mobile devices as well. But there's a lot of other mobile devices that are out there as well that we don't necessarily readily think about when we're talking about mobile computing. Smart books, wearable devices, screens, cameras, touch panel displays, keyboards, speech translators. They're almost literally everywhere around us. Now, while the physical devices themselves are very cool and very neat, and we really kind of get jazzed up about them, especially if you're a geek or a technologist, and that's your thing. The reality is we need some sort of software, some sort of services to be offered on them. Without it, it's just a cool paperweight. And certainly when it comes to mobile devices, there's not really a shortage today with the various software and services that are offered. There's mobile portals, for example, gateways to the internet that are optimized for mobility and that aggregates and provides content and services for mobile users. For example, if you access the Tarleton website via a mobile device, the web server basically queries the device to see what's actually accessing their website. And if it's a mobile device, it recognizes that the screen resolution is going to be a little bit different. The screen layout should be a little bit different. And as a result, you get directed to a mobile website rather than the full-blown website. And so it's providing specialized content for those devices. Content providers, somebody that's going to provide content specialized for your mobile devices. SMS messages, a service that supports sending and receiving of short text messages on mobile phone. Texting. MMS messages, multimedia messaging services. Basically the ability to send photos, to send videos to people and receive those as well. Location-based services, the ability to make purchases such as movie tickets or find restaurants that are nearby you wherever you happen to be at a particular moment in time. Voice support services, interactive voice response, a voice system that enables users to request and receive information and to enter and change data through a telephone to a computerized system. And then it talks about voice portals as well. If you've got a mobile device and you go to Google, for example, on a mobile device, you should have a little microphone symbol there. You can do voice searches. In other words, you simply read aloud, hit the button, read aloud what it is that you're searching for, and it automatically fills in the search query and queries based on that. It's becoming more and more common on portable devices where text entry isn't necessarily as easy, especially when you're on the go, as you might like. Those various apps and various services that are being delivered to our devices, our portable devices, our mobile devices, have to be delivered over some sort of medium. In the office or at home, a lot of times that's via a wired connection, though wireless is becoming more common in those environments as well. But when in mobile commerce, Wireless is the flavor of the day, if you will. So wireless telecommunications networks include a variety of different ways of connecting those devices to the network to be able to access those services. Personal area networks, wireless telecommunications network for device-to-device communications within a very short range. This is traditionally referred to as traditionally it's Bluetooth that is used to access these types of networks or create these types of networks. Very short distances, usually no more than around 18 feet. Sometimes depends on how much interference you might have in a room, how many other devices you might have in a room, but the range is significantly limited. But the idea behind it is you're able to make these connections without cables, and they should be very easy to create these little small personal area networks. Wireless LANs are also used to be able to provide some of these services to users. Larger range than what you might have with personal area networks or Bluetooth networks. Usually about 200 meters is about the max that you're going to get from a wireless access point. So it gives you significantly more range, but it's not like you can travel all over the city unless there's multiple wireless access points throughout the city. But this is typically what you'll see in your house or at work, and it gives you the ability to plop down on the couch with your laptop and be able to access various websites while watching TV without having to run a cable. Wi-Fi, wireless fidelity, is a common name used to describe the 802.11 standard of wireless LANs. It's just kind of a marketing term that's been attributed to wireless LANs. It's attributable or can be attributed to trying to create name recognition, much like you might see in the you used to see back in the day with audio and hi-fi stereo equipment. It's used as a marketing term to try to develop name recognition amongst users. WiMAX is yet another wireless standard out of the 802.16 standard for making broadband network connections over a medium-sized area such as a city. Similar to Wi-Fi, but the protocol is slightly different, as you can probably guess just from the different numbers in the standard. But it's designed to give a larger area of coverage. Wireless wide area networks, WWANs, are telecommunications network that offers wireless coverage over a large geographical area, typically over a cellular phone network. So that's the type we're using cellular phone networks to provide not just voice services but also data services, and this is sometimes referred to as the WWAN or WWAN. So how does Wi-Fi work? Well, basically they try to illustrate this in Exhibit 6.4. Most of us are going to be familiar with where they show station 1, 2, and 3. But beyond that, it really we think about the cloud. So with 1, that's our wireless access point, and it's going to connect us to our PC, and it's going to connect to our router. And then beyond that, it's going to connect to the internet in a variety of different ways. Could be through antenna, could be through satellite, could be through cable or DSL modem. And then those various routers all across the internet that allow us to connect to other resources. And while that's a fairly simplified view of how Wi-Fi actually works, when we start to think about the various connections that are necessary to make mobile commerce work, it can pretty quickly become more complicated pretty quickly. We start thinking about mobile devices and how they're going to connect to the network, in this case various transmission towers. Those transmission towers are ultimately going to connect back to landlines somewhere. They're going to go through mobile middleware applications somewhere to identify the type of device that's actually being accessed. The web with stored web pages is going to be searched for, so in order to be able to find the actual content that you're looking for. The web servers and host computers are going to try to respond to that request. Web pages and responses are usually coded in HTML, but there's also a need for encrypted responses translated into some type of wireless language. Think about if you're making a purchase You don't want to send credit card information across the wire unencrypted, so encryption becomes necessary. And then microbrowsers display the responses in the wireless wireless languages. In other words, microbrowsers, you can't display an entire web page on a mobile device. You can, but it's not particularly user friendly. So you have to restructure what that page might look like in order to make it a little bit more user friendly, if you will, to a mobile device. So we just got through talking about mobile commerce and the process of how that works in kind of a general, very general terms. Let's talk about a specific one: mobile financial applications or mobile banking. Why do we want to be able to access those services? Well, we can perform various banking activities such as balance checks, account transactions, payments, credit applications, all of that via a mobile device. We can do trade stocks. We can search for real estate and things of that nature. It can be used inside enterprises, mobile enterprises, the application of mobile computing inside the enterprise, for example, for improved communication among employees. We can use sales applications, support applications, service applications, and the idea is that the mobile worker spends a lot of time in the field. So any employee who's away from his or her primary workspace at least 10 hours a week or 25% of the time is defined as a mobile worker. If we want to allow them to still be connected to the business and to be as productive and as efficient as possible, mobile solutions a lot of times allow them to be more productive, to be more efficient, and so there's a big appeal for that there. So some of the benefits of supporting that mobile workforce: Salesforce automation. We give our Salesforce tools out in the field to be able to take orders, to be able to query and get information for potential customers on the spot, and allows us to potentially capture sales at the moment rather than delaying a sales decision or a purchase decision further down the road, which ultimately may be lost at that point. Field force automation, mobile office applications, mobile CRM. So there's a lot of benefits of having a mobile workforce and supporting that workforce, but it's not without challenges. Certainly there's network coverage gaps and interruptions. In other words, there are breakdowns in communication. When you're traveling, your calls get dropped. Your ability to connect to the network gets dropped, or you lose it. Internetwork roaming, going from one access point to another, sometimes creates problems. Device and network management. Now we're talking about an additional network component that we have to manage, not only in terms of service, but in terms of bandwidth. Even though it may be up and running, we have to be careful about the types of applications that we're putting on that network because it may be consuming too much bandwidth. Mobile enterprise solutions also create opportunities for an enterprise to manage their fleet, to track people and vehicles, and to manage their transportation needs. So it gives you a lot of capability to streamline some of those operations, which means increased efficiency, saving money, making sure that your assets are being used as efficiently and effectively as possible. Using fleet management, a manager can potentially keep track of vehicles, where they are, how many miles that they're generating, in order to coordinate maintenance activities, in order to make sure that they're being used for company business and things like that. Other mobile devices that can be used for enterprise solutions: think about vehicle mount solutions, handheld solutions, hands-free and voice solutions. There's a lot of different applications that we can use to create efficiencies. Think about the last time you saw a UPS driver deliver something to your house or to your workplace. A FedEx driver. They come in with their little computers. They're able to quickly scan devices or scan packages. They're able to give you a lot of quick feedback about where a package is, where it was, when it should be delivered, all that type of information. And that's only because of our constant tracking, our connection via wireless networks, and our use of these mobile computing devices to be able to do that. iPads in the enterprise, really just kind of an extension of that. We see more and more of that occurring, where these computers are becoming less specialized and more general purpose, and that gives us the ability to provide additional services on these more general purpose devices. Mobile devices and these networks are really allow us to provide a whole host of other services as well that aren't necessarily all business oriented. Certainly we're able to provide entertainment outlets as well, to provide various types of mobile entertainment, so mobile music and video, mobile games, mobile gambling, mobility and sports. So for example, on my little tablet, I have a game of Risk that I like to play. Various games that you might have on cell phones, things like Temple Run is a popular game, or Fruit Ninja. So there's a lot of different entertainment components that you have in these mobile devices. Think of Netflix when it comes to movies, or iTunes for music. So there's a lot of entertainment value that we get out of these mobile devices as well, that without the networks and without the hardware, we simply wouldn't have access to. Mobile commerce also spreads to various other industries as well, and allows for other consumer applications to be used. Healthcare, hospitality management, public safety and crime prevention, as well as other industries. I had my knee done here a few years ago, had torn ligaments, torn cartilage, torn meniscus, and the orthopedist that did my knee filled all the information out on a little portable computer, and he was talking about it, and one of the things that he noticed was he got much fewer questions from the other people that worked at his office about what he wrote. You know, obviously doctors are pretty infamous for their handwriting and not being able to read the handwriting. But when it's all typed into the system, it's obviously you lose a lot of that issue, and so as a result, it helped to streamline operations at the doctor's office. Location-based mobile commerce is to me one of the more interesting areas as it relates to mobile commerce. Location-based m-commerce is the delivery of m-commerce transactions to individuals in a specific location at a specific time. And obviously this gives you some advantages. I was at a conference a few years ago, and we're walking down the street, and well, let's find a restaurant. And so you bring up your smartphone, and you're able to access all the various restaurants that are nearby within walking distance. So it gives you a lot of ability to be able to find things that you're interested in that are close by that you can take advantage of, that you may not have otherwise known were there. The flip side of that, though, is there's a privacy issue. Somebody knows where you are all the time. That's how they know where you are, to know where those restaurants are. So there is that privacy issue that goes into that as well. But it's the ability to track where you are in real time that allows you to be able to make those recommendations of those restaurants, of those various other shops, and other sites that might be of interest to you. Location-based mobile commerce requires a little bit more additional infrastructure too, though. It's not just a case of the mobile device, the network, and the various services that are being offered. You've also got to have some kind of positioning component. In other words, some type of mechanism for determining where you actually are located. So it's a little bit more complicated than just the mobile devices and applications that we've talked about so far. So location-based services require the use of some sort of GPS positioning, or using wireless LAN positioning to be able to determine your exact location. GPS obviously is something that most people are familiar with, but this allows your physical location to be triangulated, usually among various satellites that are used to do this. And then it links up to your systems, to the various systems on the back end, to be able to say, okay, this is where you're located. These are the various services that are offered in that particular area, whether it be restaurants or trying to navigate your car, find other friends that you're tracking, things like that. Conceptually, there's two approaches to using location-based mobile commerce, or identifying the location of a user using location-based mobile commerce, geolocation, and network-based positioning. And we'll talk about each one in a little bit more detail on the next slide. But geolocation basically is the process of automatically identifying a web user's physical location without that user having to provide any information. In other words, it just knows where you are. Network-based positioning relies on base stations to find the location of a mobile device sending a signal or sensed by the network. So you usually have to provide some sort of information to be able to log into the network, whether you're actually logging in or it's something that your device is automatically logging into. There's still some sort of a login process or a registration process onto that particular network. So network-based positioning is going to calculate the location of a mobile device from signals sent out by the device to base stations, the terminals. So it's going to determine where your mobile device is relative to a terminal. Global positioning systems are a worldwide satellite-based tracking system that enables users to determine their position anywhere on the planet. And rather than using these base stations, it uses satellites to be able to triangulate your position. Location-based data facilitates a lot of different types of location-based mobile commerce services. Locating things, for example, being able to find where a restaurant is, find where locations are that you're trying to find. Being able to navigate from where you currently are to where you want to be. Searching for things, identifying things, event checking. So location-based data really is very important when it comes to those types of activities. Geographic information systems are computer systems capable of integrating, storing, editing, analyzing, sharing, and displaying geographically referenced or spatial information. This gets used a lot of times to keep track of things like pipelines or cable television wires that are spread across a city, sewer lines, gas lines, a lot of those types of things. And it gives you a good way of bringing together information from different sources, putting them on a map so that you can see how they relate to each other. You may be able to, for example, identify high crime areas within a community by placing the addresses of various criminal reports into a system, into a map, so that you can see where most of these events are occurring. And it gives you a different perspective of what's occurring in a community. Specific examples of location-based services include automatic vehicle location, AVL, and social location-based marketing. AVL is a means for automatically determining the geographic location of a vehicle and transmitting the information to a request. So take, for example, a florist who delivers flowers to various locations throughout a city. A manager might want to know how many of the stops that the driver has already made. By querying the system, the AVL system, they can identify which specific addresses have already been visited and thus identify which remaining sites they still have to visit. Social location-based marketing is where social media tools give the option to users to share their location, and hence give businesses the opportunity to deliver targeted offers and messages to consumers. So it's an opportunity to know that this particular user is in this particular location. We have a store that's right there. Let's give them a coupon. Now, at first glance, it may seem that location-based mobile commerce is a no-brainer and that everybody should jump on the bandwagon and use this as a tool to reach customers, as a tool to increase efficiency in our organizations and things like that. However, there are several barriers to using location-based mobile commerce. A lack of GPS in mobile phones. This is becoming less and less of an issue every day. It's becoming much more common, but it certainly is an issue, especially for older phones. The accuracy of devices. Even though they are significantly better than the information that we once had, they're not necessarily particularly accurate regarding our location. So you may get recommendations for a place that's not nearby, for example. The cost-benefit justification. In other words, it may cost more to be able to provide that type of service than we may benefit from it. So we have to keep that in mind before we decide to offer location-based services. Limited network bandwidth. If we happen to be in a location that's sparsely populated and doesn't have particularly good coverage, it may not behoove us to use location-based services because we simply may not have the capability, the service offerings in the area in terms of network access. And then there's concerns with respect to invasion of privacy. The example that I gave in an earlier slide regarding a florist and delivering the flowers around town, employees may not like being tracked every time they stop somewhere. In other words, if they stop at a convenience store and pick up a drink to have throughout their day as they're traveling from site to site, they may not want their bosses to necessarily know that. Most people wouldn't object to that, but it may be an issue. Many people believe that the next major step in the evolution of computing will be towards ubiquitous or pervasive computing. A lot of times these terms are used interchangeably. Ubiquitous computing is computing capabilities that are being embedded into the objects around us, which may be mobile or stationary. And then the authors draw a slight distinction with pervasive computing being computing capabilities embedded in the environment, but typically not mobile. The idea is that we will simply have computing capacity in everything that's around us, to the point that we take it for granted that it's our refrigerators are computerized, our coffee machines are computerized, our cars. It's literally everywhere around us. In many ways, it gives us a sense of mobile computing because it is all around us, but it may not be the same device as we go through different environments throughout our day. There are four basic principles of pervasive computing: decentralization, diversification, connectivity, and simplicity. Decentralization of computing is basically the transition from a centralized mainframe computer to the personal computer to pervasive computing. Basically the idea that there's not a central repository of data, a central location with which we can use our computing devices. So we end up with tablets and cell phones and all that, but the data is stored somewhere in the cloud, so we can access that data from virtually any device. Diversification is the idea that computing devices will evolve from a fully functional one computer does all paradigm to one in which specialized diversified devices will suit the requirements of an individual for a very specific person. So you may own, you may own several devices that kind of overlap each other in terms of functionality, but really there's going to be a preferred tool for each specific purpose that you might have. Connectivity is, as it relates to this, is the independent pervasive computing devices, tags, sensors, and badges that will be seamlessly connected to the network or to each other, connected through common standards. And then lastly, simplicity. The devices must be designed for simplistic use, intuitive interfaces, speech recognition, the ability to handle and manipulate them using a single hand, and things of that nature. So they should be very easy to use devices. Another idea as it relates to this is the idea of context-aware computing, an application's ability to detect and react to a set of environmental variables that is described as context. And the idea is that it centers on the concept of using information about an end user's environment, their activities, their connections, their preferences, that can improve the quality of the interaction. So the computer knows that you happen to be really busy right now, or it knows that you've got a free moment, and is able to communicate with you, understanding that context, and it makes the experience a little bit better. Eventually what we're evolving to, or the belief is that we're going to be evolving to with ubiquitous and pervasive computing, is this concept of Internet of Things. And it's the concept of, rather than it just being us as individuals connecting to other people and connecting to devices and communicating with those other people and those devices, that we will start to see devices connecting to other devices. In other words, our refrigerator communicating with our grocery store, so that when we get there it can tell them what we need. And so it's this connectivity of devices amongst each other to be able to provide services above and beyond what we have now. The belief is that once we get to a point that we're at an Internet of Things, that it's going to require additional applications, smart applications, if you will, that integrate with our electricity systems, our homes, our cars, really all around us, in order to be able to manage our daily lives in a very automated fashion. The concept of a smart grid, an electricity network managed by utilizing digital technology, is the idea that we can use these systems to be able to manage our electricity consumption in a much more efficient and effective way. A smart grid environment really requires coordination between an awful lot of different environments. So it can be a very complex system, and it's not until we really get to that Internet of Things or that pervasive computing that it really starts to become feasible, because we're linking together service providers, operations, distribution, markets, our homes, industries, businesses. We're linking all of that together, and so now we have a lot of connectivity, which certainly creates security concerns. We have privacy issue concerns. So there's an awful lot that has to go into this system first to make it work, but second to be able to make it an environment that we as consumers feel like we can trust and feel safe in. But some of the advantages or promises of ubiquitous pervasive computing and the use of sensory networks is really very compelling. It's very attractive to an awful lot of consumers. Smart homes and appliances that control our lighting, control our energy consumption, control our use of water, help to secure our home environment, help to keep us entertained, allowing us to go from room to room watching the same programs. Smart appliances that are again more efficient is very promising. A lot of consumers really hope to be able to take advantage of a lot of those services. At the same time, there's smart and driverless cars that help to park themselves, and the potential of driverless cars. I don't know how many of you've heard of the Google car that has been making news, but a car that literally has no driver, is able to drive itself from place to place without the use of any special kind of roadways or anything like that. Everything's self-contained within the automobile. One real area of pervasive computing that has a lot of potential is in the area of RFID and sensor networks. Most of the time when you hear RFID, people tend to think about logistics and moving products from point A to point B, and that's absolutely true. That's definitely an area where RFID has gotten a lot of press and a lot of play in various trade publications. But when you combine that, when you start to think about these systems that actually read those tags, those are what most people would refer to as some sort of a sensor network. And a sensor network can give you a lot more information than just keeping track of where a particular pallet happens to be located. A sensor network is a collection of nodes capable of environmental sensing, local computation, and communication with its peers, or with higher performance nodes. And so with the right applications, smart sensor applications, it really kind of gives you a very real-time sense of what's going on in a particular situation, if you will, depending on what it is that you're trying to monitor. So in the case of a warehouse, you're trying to monitor RFID tags to keep track of where particular products are at any moment in time. But you may be keeping track of wind, for example, or traffic on roads. And it gives you real-time information about what's going on at any specific moment in time, so that you can respond to that in an appropriate manner. If a road happens to be very busy at a particular time, you may need to do some further checking. There may be an accident that's occurred on that road, and you may have to dispatch personnel to help with an accident. Now, this view, if you will, of everything that's going on from these sensor networks creates privacy issues associated with ubiquitous computing. It creates a loss of individual privacy. Tags and sensors embedded in items, especially retail items, make it possible to track an owner and buyers of those items. Data are collected normally if you're online and you're filling out surveys and things of that nature, you're aware that you're giving up that data. You check a checkbox, you may receive a discount in exchange for providing that information, but you're able to make that conscientious choice to share that data or not share that data. But when this information is embedded in tags, that data tends to be collected in a much more unobtrusive and a much more invisible fashion. And so even though you may realize that it's being gathered, you're not conscientiously thinking about it at the time. And so that leads some people to be concerned about privacy issues as it relates to ubiquitous computing. We already talked about some of the privacy issues as it relates to mobile commerce. There's security issues as well. Going back to our conceptualization or discussion of sensor networks, we want to make sure that our systems are secure so that our sensor networks are actually giving us real data. We don't want to, due to a security issue, be receiving what we think is genuine real-time data that is in fact false. There are some situations where this would be embarrassing. There are other situations where this could be catastrophic if you think about military applications. There's technological barriers to mobile commerce. Obviously, we don't have mobile networks nationwide. There are certain areas where there's not cell phone coverage, for example. So if we're trying to reach every market, we may not be able to due to certain technological barriers. There's failures in mobile computing and mobile commerce. In other words, some organizations do not simply do not implement their organizational infrastructure appropriately to be able to take advantage of mobile computing. And this occurs for a variety of different reasons. There's ethical, legal, privacy, and health issues in mobile commerce. When you think about as it relates specifically to health issues, we have laws in place that protect an individual's information in terms of keeping it private. And so you have to manage that data very carefully, and when you move it into an online environment, into a mobile environment, that becomes a bigger issue because it's much more difficult to secure that type of information. And then there's mobility management. In other words, the types of policies and procedures that we're going to have in place dealing with mobile devices. So going back to that example earlier where we were talking about the florist and the delivery driver delivering things, what are the policies for a driver to stop on their own time to do something of a personal nature? We need to think about those issues before we simply jump into the mobile commerce environment. So when it comes to managerial issues, we need to think, as an organization, we need to think about what our mobile commerce strategy is going to be. Are we simply trying to provide information? Are we trying to conduct transactions? Are we trying to drive walk-in business? We need to think about what our strategy is going to be. We need to think about our implementation timetable. In other words, are we going to try to roll out an entire completed mobile commerce environment, and what's the time frame for that? Are we going to deliver it in chunks? In other words, add functionality over time? And again, what is that timetable? Are there any clear technical winners, and which applications should be implemented first? In other words, which technologies are we going to pick? There's a lot of different services that we can provide, a lot of different types of apps, different platforms that we can support. Which one are we going to pursue, and which applications should be implemented first? Again, are we trying to drive walk-in traffic? Are we trying to drive transactions? What is that strategy that we're going to pursue? So in this chapter we talked about mobile commerce and defined what it was, and we talked about its value-added attributes and some of the fundamental drivers of what is pushing us towards mobile commerce. We talked about the mobile computing environment that supports mobile commerce. We talked about some of the different types of networks that support mobile devices. We talked about financial applications. We talked about mobile enterprise solutions. We talked about consumer and personal applications and mobile entertainment. We talked about location-based commerce and ubiquitous computing and sensory systems. Then we concluded the chapter talking about security and other implementation issues. This concludes Chapter 6, Mobile Commerce and Ubiquitous Computing. Thank you.